inevitable.
We're gonna play football. Yippee!
You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Review. It's the Online Sports Guys College Football Podcast, and yes, we are back. We've been kind of going monthly here over the last couple months during the off season, as there really hasn't been a whole lot going on in the world of college football. But we do have some stuff to talk about as we kind of ramp up and consider this our kickoff to the 2021 season, because from here on in, we're going to go weekly. Guys, probably the biggest topic of conversation, the thing that's dominated the headlines over the last several weeks and really probably is going to change college football from the way it's been to the way it's going to be, and that's name, image, and likeness. And for just a real quick briefer for those of you who haven't followed it, there had been proposals in multiple states to allow athletes at the college level, college football players, college basketball more specifically, because they're the ones who weren't allowed to get any money for pretty much anything. And the pressure from those states to make something happen kind of got the NCAA to at least discuss making it happen. And then all of a sudden, the date came up right before the end of July when the deadline hit, and July 1st was when most states' legislation was going to kick in. And lo and behold, the NCAA says, okay, blanket rule, everybody can do it. If you play college football, you can play college basketball, you can make money off of yourself. First question to the floor. Why did the NCAA wait until the last possible second to do this? Because now you've got total chaos.
Because you only do something like this, when you get caught. It's like apologizing after the fact. It's like you get busted for like denting the car, like when you're 16 or 17 and you take your parents' car out and you kind of scrape the light stanchion in the parking lot at the shopping mall, and you kind of sit there and you look at the outside of the car and you sit there and go, God, I hope they don't notice. And it's this big gouge in the passenger door. Then you drive home and, your dad comes up to you and says, I noticed something with the car. Did anything happen while you were out with the car? And you go, well, no, I didn't see anything. Nothing happened to me. We were all fine. We're at the mall. We're at the arcade. We're shopping. Everything was fine with us. And then somebody comes at you with an insurance claim and you sit there and it's like, oh yeah, I hit something. NCAA is always retroactive here. They're never a proactive entity. It's always this reactive nature. And so I think that they just got caught for running into a parked car at the shopping mall, and so they felt compelled to do something.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, it's as a football player and as someone who was never a superstar, and I've mentioned this before on the show, it's just like you're going to have your high flyers, your superstars that are going to get this NIL money, and you're going to have that third string offensive lineman that's not. So I was listening to an interview with Carolina head coach Mack Brown last week, who, by the way, his wife Sally is the one that changed his mind on NIL. He was not a big fan of it until Sally kind of picked his brain a little bit. But he was saying he wanted to tell the students not to listen to the noise, not less, oh man, I can make money now. No, don't put brand before ball, which I appreciate that completely. But he's like, don't listen to the noise. Don't think that you don't have to work still to be a good athlete, even with this NIL. Don't put that. So yeah, I'm torn on it. I'm happy to see that students are going to be able to get some money, because as a scholarship athlete, I couldn't get a job in college. But at the same time, what do you tell your 100 other teammates on a football team that aren't getting this money? So it's like, I agree that it's just chaos right now. It should have a better rollout plan than the way the NCAA is handling it. But it's the way the NCAA works.
See, here I am now by myself, talking to myself. That's chaos.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what would have happened if the NCAA actually had a brain and settled with Ed O'Bannon perhaps we would have
A
the
decade
measures
ago.
Yes.
that we're talking about now here, and not have the craziness that we have right now. Look, you guys know where I stand. I'm always for the athlete, and any way they can help them financially, with academics. I'm always for the athlete, and I think this is a good thing in the long run for collegiate athletes. But is it going to be managed, and how is it going to be regulated? And I this is where maybe you need some. I hesitate to use the word czar, but maybe a commissioner or something that can be I get the grand poobah, in other words, of college football that can have some direction in this. Uh, because right now it is crazy out there. You read about Bo Nix at Auburn getting a deal with Milo's, and then University of Alabama fans are a little upset with that. So I guess Milo's had to find an Alabama player to sponsor, which is a whole new twist to that
But you're
rivalry.
gonna get that. I mean,
I know.
yeah.
But
Um,
another layer to that is you got Auburn and Alabama, right? What do you do for Jackson State? What do you do for Coastal Carolina? What do you do for these little schools that don't have the name recognition that a Milos is going to go after? I mean, you have that to look at as well. So somebody's got to be over this thing. So I agree with Wookie completely. Somebody has to give some kind of structure here.
Because right now the NCAA has no juice at all, and so Mark Emmert has no credibility at all that could lead the effort, and neither does the NCAA as an organization. So something's got to give here. I hope it's not Congress getting involved, because then it gets screwed up. There needs something.
It was kind of the Supreme Court decision that spurred all this to say, okay, let's do it.
Exactly. So let college athletics deal with this. Let the cooler heads. If it's the 10 commissioners in in Division I football, 1A football, the Group of Five and the Power Five league commissioners coming together on some kind of way to do this, as well as FCS, D2, D3. Let the conference commissioners come together and come out with a consensus on this.
Yep.
I think those are the smartest people in the room right now with this. But we are in the Wild West days of this. I'm looking forward to seeing the trickle down effect on this, especially in locker rooms. JW and I have been in college locker rooms,
Yep.
and it can be a very dicey situation at times. And this is going to be a whole new era in college athletics. But one thing I want to bring up too is now some of these top level quarterbacks, running backs, they're going to have accountants now. They're going to have they probably have a marketing team, but these guys are going to understand what it's like to pay taxes now. And that's something that has been flying way under the radar on this whole thing. If you've got a major college quarterback that's got $1 million deal with said company, well, that's taxable income now, and that's going to be a splash of cold water that these people probably thought of, but didn't think it was going to affect them as they're going to find out.
And it's funny you bring that up, because a former teammate of mine and I have been having this conversation about who does that. Should it be the school that provides that type of accounting help, like a tutor in an academic class, or should the conference give that type of, and there's going back and forth on who should be responsible for that. And long story short, we've kind of on the agreement that the school should be providing some type of accounting help for that said.
But realistically, J-Dub, how many of these schools are going to be of the mindset of, it's your deal, it's your problem?
I could see that.
That's a good point. And I think that's where the conferences need to step in. And there's got to be a consensus within the commissioners, because again, I think they're the smartest guys in the room on all this. And if that can happen, I think it becomes a manageable situation. But right now, it's just Katie bar the door.
Yeah, and you can't trust a kid to do it on their own. Otherwise, we'll have another Icky Woods situation. I mean, you
One of
just
the
can't.
other examples I wanted to bring up to you guys is down in Miami, a guy who runs a mixed martial arts gym, the American Top Team Training Facility, owned by Dan Lambert, who's a longtime Miami football booster.
Color me shocked.
He has offered to each scholarship player on the Miami football roster $500 a month endorsement to mention his gym on social media.
Got to spend money to make money.
Yeah. I mean, think about the market saturation that he's going to have with each of the players from the Orange and Green School in Coral Gables. and I mean, it's brilliant marketing.
Yeah.
But once again, I mean, this is, and I give him a lot of credit for making sure that this is a deal that covers all of the athletes.
That's what I was saying.
Because J-Dub, as the offensive lineman here in the group, it's going to be, most of the time, it's going to be the skill position players that are going to be getting the bulk of these deals under NIL. And, the first string lineman, the second string lineman, those kinds of players are not going to be the ones that are going to be getting the marquee deals unless it is hyper specialized to a specific job that they're doing. And, it's, construction or whatever, and there's a tie. But I give him credit for locking in the entire team like this. This will not be the last time that you see something like this. But, once again, I want to see where these kind of deals go and what the money is that's attached here to all of this. But think of the market saturation that he's going to get from sponsoring the entire team. I mean, it's brilliant marketing. Let's just see if it pays off. But I will always go back to the notion of take care of your taxes, guys. Put some money aside and hope that you get the guidance to do that.
So
And something
85
like
scholarships and walk-ons, that's a pretty good chunk of change.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to think about it. I couldn't agree with John Moore, and I've even said it today. I mean, this takes some of that animosity out of the locker room because everybody's getting something. So, I mean, I really hope more businesses like that take that blueprint and enjoy that market saturation because it's a brilliant idea. If you got the money to throw around, do it. Like, for example, at Kansas, there was a walk-on player, right? And walk-ons aren't normally, the ones you think that will get NIL, but he's from Lawrence, and there's a brewery in Lawrence that said, hey, look, he's a local kid, I'm going to give him money. So, it's just literally because of where he was from, had no connection to the brewery at all. Just like, hey, he's from Lawrence, I'm going to give him money. So, I mean, I agree with John. It's going to be hyper specialized, hyper localized. But I like the idea of the broad brush just because it takes away any type of locker room problems you may or may not have.
Well, what's fascinating here to me, and we're about to show our ages here, I think, a little bit, is that a lot of this marketing and a lot of the things that these guys are going to be you're being paid to do is to share their stuff on social, share information, and share about the brand that they're representing on social media.
Yeah.
And that's where the advertising money comes in. And instead of traditional advertising where you have somebody saying, hi, I'm so-and-so standing here. I played tight end for the Wisconsin Badgers, and I'm here to tell you to buy a car at this car dealer. Instead of that, you're getting them promoting it on that brand on social media. And it's just fascinating to me to see the change and how that's all come about. And all of a sudden now you're a brand ambassador. And that's really, I think, what this NIL stuff's going to come down to being, more so than just here's $1,000, go wear my clothes.
I don't know why that triggered the Ricky Bobby and Cole Naughton outtakes from Talladega Nights. Like, hi, I'm Ricky Bobby, and the little advertisements they did there. See, but yeah, a lot of us social media newbies, don't understand the power of a TikTok or the power of an Instagram. And some of these players have incredible influence online. And like, who is it? Mitch Lightfoot, who is basically a second string big man for Kansas. I mean, the day the announcement came down, he had a little social media graphic saying, I'm open for business. If you'd like for me to pimp your brand, hit me up on hit me up on social media. So I thought that was really smart. The athlete out advertising for someone to throw money his way. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, I mean, we're in a world where you've got people who are making, really realistically, you got people who are making 6-7 figures just putting videos out on YouTube on a weekly basis.
Kind of like the online sports guys.
Which we're trying to do here, and we're roughly 6 or 7 figures behind all of them in profit. In case you want to contribute, we'd be happy to promote your brand.
Yes, we would.
Absolutely.
And we're happy to sample it too, as well, and give you a positive review.
5-star review on Yelp. Got you taken care of.
OSGsports@gmail.com.
Exactly.
Let us help you.
Now, this popped in my head as far as, although we're talking we're a college football show, I'm trickling down to the other sports as well. To me, I think will be a tremendous boon for women's athletics.
But they can already
and
do this.
Volleyball, beach volleyball, and gymnastics, because now they can sell sex appeal.
But Wilkie, they've already been able to do this. It's just the football and basketball players haven't.
Well, now they've got more of incentive to do it, because I think that is going to be a trickle-down effect in all this NIL stuff, where attractive female athletes are going to be social media influencers, and they can do it on a regular basis. And I think that's going to really help the name recognition for women's athletics in college as well. So I think that might be a nice little undercurrent to all this, giving them more attention. I know, JW, you got into the NCAA softball, and I can just see now some of those athletes starting to get some NIL money because they're getting exposure. So I think it's going to be a nice boon for female athletics on the collegiate level.
And you're seeing athletes like Sarah Fuller, who is now technically a soccer player at the University of North Texas, Go Mean Green, and she has signed a contract with an agency, and she is now marketing her own gear. So if you want to drop X amount of dollars on a Sarah Fuller T-shirt to represent her and everything that she has been able to accomplish as a role model for women's athletics, you can do that. So Sarah Fuller is one of the recent examples for something like that when you're looking at female athletes in NIL.
Yep.
But we're a football show, so
yes,
we talk
football show. Yes, exactly. Yes,
and obviously,
correct.
And she did play in a football game.
She
yes,
did.
she did
Against my Volunteers.
So obviously, guys, the skill position guys in football are going to get the majority of the recognition. How long do we start? I don't know if agent is the right word, but hangers on or posses, or when is that effect going to come? And is that going to be regulated?
There are companies that are already in this field to represent these guys. Drew Butler, who was a former punter for the University of Georgia, has a company here in the metro Atlanta area, and his job is, what they do is particularly, they take athletes from whatever given sport and line them up with prospective marketing opportunities with different companies. So the business is there. It's just a matter of getting A to B and so on and so forth. The schools can't really get involved and say, hey, we want to recommend these guys to you. It's up to the individual athlete.
Yeah, it's like, someone in Iowa, I think Jordan Bohannon, I think is his name. He's got his own apparel, but he's also been sponsored by Boomin' Iowa Fireworks. De'Aaron King in Miami is doing video game appearances. I think the Wisconsin quarterback, was it Graham Mertz? Mertz, I think is his name, was the first person to do a video saying his trademark, right? His trademark on his name. First person that actually did that when the thing came down in July. So, I mean, these athletes are very eager and hungry to, if the money's out there, they're going to find it, especially if you're an influencer already on social media. I mean, your marketability just shot through the roof.
It's fascinating to me how everything in the last 10 years has turned toward branding. And it's not, used to be that would be a conversation between companies. how do we brand ourselves? How do we brand our company? How do we brand our product? And
Thanks to
now it's
social media.
individuals.
Yep.
Now it's all people trying to brand themselves individually. And is this again showing my age a little bit? This is something I couldn't even have fathomed as a kid.
Get off my lawn.
That something like this would even be happening. But yet,
Because we
here
all
are.
looked at the notion of going to college for an education, and if you were a quality athlete that could get the opportunity in athletics, then you would do that as a part of your DNA in college. Now, the way things are, it's about maximizing your value as an entity. You know, and it was only the star power that was there when we were in school that got to gravitate toward these kinds of ideas, where now if someone sees value in you as an entity, and you think that there's value in yourself as a brand, and it's hyper specialized value in whatever brand avenue you want to take for yourself, we're finally getting to the point to where we're circling back around to the idea of the athlete getting rewarded for their efforts in something more than just a college scholarship to further them in their life, to where, you know, you're maximizing yourself out right now. And if it happens that it goes between the ages of 18 and 22, and then when your college career is over, you end up doing something else with your life entirely, what you've done is you jump-started your self-economy, for lack of a better word, and
Yeah,
you're working your way in that
You're
direction.
coming out of college with something instead
Yeah.
of coming out of college broke.
you know, Phil, you kind of aged us a little bit in that regard, but you know, I go back to a college football player of our generation that really kind of pioneered this, and he's probably smiling right now, beaming, and that's Brian Bosworth.
Yep.
He was the first guy I can think of that branded himself with the mohawk haircut, and of course he was an outstanding linebacker for playing for all people. Barry Switzer, boy, that was a marriage made in heaven, wasn't it? But I forget what game it was. I don't know if it was one of the Oklahoma Miami games they played, but there were T-shirts sold against Oklahoma, and it turned out that Brian Bosworth was behind that effort. So he had the business acumen to sell T-shirts against Oklahoma, and you know, I guess the money went somewhere where it wasn't flagged by the NCAA. So I'm not sure how all that went, but he's the first guy I can think of that branded himself in college football. And of course, he parlayed that into a nice contract with the Seahawks. And when Bo Jackson took him out, he was never heard from again. And then he went in the acting. But he's the first one I can think of, and he's from our generation. I mean, he's I think a couple of years older than me, in mid 50s. So you know, it goes back to then. And again, it was getting on television, and Oklahoma back then was getting on TV quite a bit, even though it was more regulated than it is now. Every game wasn't on television.
Yeah, and
with social media.
Yeah, and I was at Wake Forest when Rodney Rogers, Tim Duncan, Muggsy Bogues were there. Our football team, we had a couple go in, like John Henry Mills went to the NFL, played for Minnesota. Mike McCrary went and played for the what was before the Ravens. But I mean, these guys when we were in the dorm, we were either playing ping pong or pool or pickup game in the gym. It was not about their brand, right? It was not. It was they were not bigger than the sport. They weren't bigger than their teammates. And, you know, Tim Duncan was first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Yeah. And, you know, he was, I mean, the first thing he did with his first paycheck when he got into the pros was pay off his mom's house. So it's the type of person he is. I'm not saying that the people being aggressive now are not family first. I'm not saying any of that. I know Bosworth probably was not, but it was being at a time, like I said, when we were older, when we didn't have cell phones or social media back then. It was interesting to see how the star athletes kind of handled themselves. Like Muggsy Bogues was basically team dad. I mean, I remember, he wasn't like 5'0" nothing, but I mean, he made sure we were all in the right place at the right time. So it just, interesting to see how athletics have changed. And I look at our athletics, your number one as a player is making money off your name, your number one. And I go back to what Mac Brown says, don't let your brand happen or take precedent over your ball, because then you're going to fall down the wayside, at least as an active athlete and a participatory athlete.
But something interesting we started to touch on there is for a kid who doesn't have a whole lot, gets a scholarship to go play at a university, and even if he isn't a starter and a high publicity guy, but he gets a little bit of money to spend and have in his pocket while he's walking around campus for 4 or 5 years, all of a sudden you've got somebody entering the workforce who's got at least a couple of dollars to his name, as opposed to somebody who played 4 years of college football, doesn't make the NFL, and is suddenly broke and has to figure out how to make money. So there are some things about this that really could help some of these younger guys and some of the guys that may not end up being so famous. And it's an interesting way to think about it. That never really occurred to me until Wilkie kind of went in that direction. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I agree with it completely. It's like it's another layer of life. It's like when I was coming through ball, my coaches are always like, I'll teach you the little things about sports, but I want to teach you the bigger things about life and how being a man and being a better person and how that the little things will come behind it. So, and as in high school, we teach a personal finance class. We're required in North Carolina here to teach that personal finance class to seniors. So some states that don't have that, it would be nice to know how to handle your money, how to make sure you stock back enough for taxes and what's taxable income, what's not taxable income, how to invest. So I think it's definitely a positive if schools decide to take it in that direction. NIL could give students a reason, to have some pocket money. Like I said, I couldn't work as a scholarship athlete. I couldn't have a job because the NCAA said I could not earn money. So literally every money I had was like given to me by my family. Right. So I think that would definitely be, like Wilkie said earlier, a benefit to all athletes because they had the ability to earn money to walk around campus.
Well, and to your point, J-Dub and Wilkie, let me toss it to you after this. I think that as a part of this, even if, and we've talked about making sure that these student athletes or students put some money away, make sure that this happens. I think that there should, even if the university isn't interested in being the legal arm for these athlete students as they're negotiating things about their own individual brands, I think that as a mandatory class for all of these athlete students now because of NIL, Wilkie, I think you should have a financial planning course integrated into whatever your major is, not an elective, but something that's integrated into your coursework to make sure that you at least have the basic knowledge that's needed with all of the money that would be coming in. And it doesn't matter if it's tens or hundreds or thousands of dollars. I think that every athlete student should have some kind of financial planning course integrated into their coursework. So at least they're not going into this blind and stumbling into it where they could get into trouble later.
And then have some kind of financial analyst there on staff in the athletic department that can manage those kind of things for them and show them what they need to put away as far as long-term income or for taxes and so forth. Again, these are things that no one has really thought of that are going to hit these student athletes like a cold splash of water.
Yep.
When April 15th comes around. The other thing I keep thinking about too is recruiting and which programs are the most marketable for these student athletes to get the better bang for their buck besides
There's
just
different levels of that.
huh?
There are different levels of that. If you go to a smaller town and you're a big fish, or even in a smaller program, if you're a big name on the football team at a smaller school and say wherever Louisiana Tech is, and I'm not thinking of the city for
Ruston.
right now, but just using that
Ruston.
You still have the potential to make some money for yourself.
Or if you're the quarterback at North Dakota State, say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You've got the casino aspect in Ruston.
Yep.
A 5-star might decide that, La Tech's not a bad place to go. and the certain casinos there might sponsor me. I might make a little more money quarterbacking the Bulldogs than I would quarterbacking LSU.
That is a slippery
Those are some
slope.
things that
That's a
nobody's really
slippery
thinking
slope,
about.
though, Jay. Wilkie, that's a slippery slope,
Yep.
especially if you're going to tie yourself to a casino in
It's
that.
Well, it's a bad example.
conversation.
But you get my
So
point.
there need to be limitations in what avenues you can pursue. But I think that but to your point, I think that if you can be that big fish in small pond and chase after those NIL dollars, I think that is a legitimate point where I think that you can steer through convincing. I think that you can steer athletes to be bigger fishes in smaller ponds because of the prospects that could be made if you're a skill position player. Go ahead, Jada.
I was just saying that I hadn't thought about this as a possibility, but how this affects the transfer portal and recruitment, and how my Jayhawks in Lawrence versus other people in the Big 12, right? I mean, if I'm going to lose, I want to lose somewhere where I'm going to get money. And I haven't thought about that being how that would affect it, but I agree with you. That's a slippery slope. You don't want to be tied to a casino or to like a strip club or to something of that nature.
Who said that was a bad example? Because you guys brought up Ruston, Louisiana, and Shreveport's right there, and there's casinos there. But you got
to think about, that's again going back to what Nelson was talking about, having someone provided. When I was at Wake Forest, they would assign you a tutor in a heartbeat if you're having trouble with a class or something. They should do the same thing with financial advisors. And, because if they're truly looking out for the student athlete, they meaning the university, then that should be available to them. Now, don't say your deal, your problem, right? Because then one of your marquee players may end up doing a big problem. And the university's not taking care of said athlete. So, and it really hit home, Nelson, when you called them athlete students. Because that's the way they're going to be looked at here, especially the ones trying to make all this money. So I think I still, like I was telling you, I had the argument the other day. I still think it's the university's place to step in and make sure that these things are provided for students. And if the university doesn't, then it should be the conference stepping in and saying, you need to do something differently.
Yeah, guys, we've droned on quite a bit here in the first half of the show here on the review. Let me throw this to the floor before we wrap it up here in the first half of the show. Do you want to continue the discussion here on NIL, or do you want to move on to some other topics here in the second half?
I mentioned to talk playoff.
Playoffs.
All right, so that'll hold because obviously we'll circle back to it. Trust me.
We got a consensus here, so looks like when we come back in the second half of the review, we're going to talk playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
Yep, that's right. All that and more here on the review. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Congratulations, you have made it to the second half of the review. We are the OSG Sports Team, the online sports guys, Brother J-Dub, Brother Wilkie, Brother John, and me, OSG Phil. We are the Online Sports Guys, and we love to talk college football. This is our now going back on weekly college football show. We'll take you through the college football season here, giving you the breakdown analysis of everything important in the great, big, wide, wonderful world of college football. And guys, in the first half of the show, we talked quite a bit about name, image, and likeness. The second half of the show, a whole other can of worms. The other big topic of this summer in the offseason of college football, and that's the proposed 12-game college football playoff. Big change from the 14 that we're currently at. Hasn't been officially ratified yet, but it sounds like that might be a formality. And I'll open it up to the floor, whoever wants to take the floor first. Your thoughts, good idea, bad idea, or just another big mess?
I'm on the fence. I think it's probably a better idea. I'm not going to say it's a great idea, but I think what we have seen in the number of years we've had the 14 playoff is it's the same teams every time in the Final Four. And I think the college football fans and fans in general are sick and tired of seeing Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and Oklahoma/Notre Dame. It's the same four teams, and Clemson and Alabama seem like they play for the championship every year.
But the TV partners want it. They're the ones happy.
Yes, the TV partners are fine, and they're making money because advertising likes it. But the general fan and even the casual fan could care less. To me, the moment that kind of the one moment to me that kind of defined this was when Clemson and Alabama played in San Francisco or in Santa Clara for the national championship, and there were still tickets remaining the day of the game. In fact, you could get them pretty cheap.
Yep.
Now, I understand it's San Francisco Bay Area, and it's not really a mecca for college football, but you had two of the Southern football meccas there, and it just didn't resonate. And I thought was the sign then that something's got to change.
It's a big ask to get people to come from one side of the country to the other.
And go to every game for their team in the tournament, regardless of size.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. It is.
Yep.
It is. And, we can talk about that a little later, but to me, that was the, I think it's a good idea. I just don't know if it's a great idea, but I think something had to give. And I think there needs to be some more teams there. Now, hopefully this puts a sheet over the bowl system. I don't think so, but
No.
one can hope, right?
Yeah, and that's my big hang up with the whole thing, which I'll get into after Jada finishes here.
I just say, the quarterfinals and semifinals under the proposed plan will be played as bowl games. So there will be some bowl game, that matter. But I don't think that you put a sheet over it just yet. It definitely,
that would be a mistake.
I agree. But yeah, it only allows the quarterfinals and semifinals to be a bowl game. So those are the only two bowl games really that matter.
So but as long as the 4-letter continues to have these 3.5-hour blocks from basically mid to late December through mid-January, that they can fill with sponsors and teams from the Go Fives and the lesser teams in the Power Fives, you will continue to have bowls. They will continue to be television programming. They won't be the bowls as we knew them when we were growing up.
Right.
Phil, to your point about the size of the increased size of the playoffs, this reminds me of when the NCAA basketball tournament went from 32 to 48.
Yep.
You're not quite to 64 going from 32. It's that step in between where the top seeds, they get the buys in the opening weekend and everything, and then 48 trims to 32 and so on and so forth. So to me, it's that mid step. I've always thought that 16 was going to be the number and it would integrate the bowl structure in all of this. But for me, this just reminds me of 1980 when the hoops tournament went from 32 teams to 48. I think it's a mid step, but I think the bowls will always exist. Not as we knew them, but now as we know them as programming blocks to satisfy sponsors because of the demand for folks that want to watch college football.
And if you look at teams, and I'm going, like, I played arena league football with a guy who was on the undefeated Tulane team. And, you know, we talked about last year the Coastal Carolinas and the Texas A&Ms that were playing really well at the end of the year that missed the playoff. I think this at 12, I agree with John. I think that it should have been 16, but I think 12 gets those Coastals and those the Florida and the Texas A&M and those teams that were playing well late, maybe not in the top 4, but it gives them a shot at, you know, any given Saturday to actually make it into the instead of just assuming that the top 4 are the best teams in the country. I think this is a positive move,
which will prevent the group of 5 from having their own playoff, which I tend to believe was starting to be in the conversation with those schools after what we saw in the 2020 season. And I think this was a way for a stopgap to prevent that from happening, because I do think it's a valuable commodity that some network would pay for.
Oh, the
And there's some
4-letter
really
would
good
integrate the
teams.
bowls as we know them and have that be your playoff system.
Yep.
Yeah, and really what this does, the system that's being proposed right now, it allows the Power 5 conference champions plus the group of 5, I guess, top seed, and then 6 wild card teams, which would still go
Which
down.
I don't like. I do not
Because
like
I
that
can
at
guarantee
all.
you that at least 5 of them will be from Power 5 conferences.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
See, this
5
is
of
why
them?
I
How
don't
about
like
all
it.
of them?
I don't like it. I mean, if this is what you're going to do, well, if you've won the MAC, I think you should be able to play in that playoff.
Absolutely.
I
Agreed.
think all 10 should be able to play, because what is that conference championship? What's the value of it if you're a group of 5 team? I mean, yeah, it's nice, and okay, maybe you get to go to Bahamas, but I mean, it's just you want to play the best, and you want to prove yourself. So why can't the conference champions of the 10 leagues be able to participate in the playoff, and you bring in 2 wild cards? Now, I'll piss off the Power 5 schools that feel like they should deserve more than a MAC champion or a Mountain West champion. But
Yeah, you open up the door to the
I think
SEC
it's a better.
saying, I want 3 teams in there.
Yep. And if you think about the 4 people that put the proposal together, it was Bowlesby from the Big 12, Sankey from the SEC, Thompson from the Mountain West, and Swarbrick from Notre Dame were the 4 that presented this recommendation today. But I agree with you. You win, you should be in. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. And that way, I don't want to see 7 teams from the SEC in this playoff. It lessens the importance of it to me.
Well, here's something else that I thought was interesting about this, and tell me if I'm off track here. What does this do to the conference championship games? Because we know those games are primarily played for, shall we say, TV money.
Yes, that they are revenue generators for the network that broadcasts them.
And now you've got a situation where you've got a winner and probably a runner-up from each of the Power 5 conferences that are going to go to the playoff anyway. Does it ruin those games?
Yes.
Yes.
Why bother?
It takes the meaning away from it. Absolutely.
Why bother? Other than the fact you're filling up a stadium and padding your wallet, that's it. And if I'm JW, you were a player on the college football level. If you knew that you're going to get in the playoff and you had to play this extra game for what was turning out to be a meaningless trophy,
opt out.
Why bother? Yeah, why bother? And
because you have to look out for your brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Circle back to the NIL.
Now, if you have the 10 conference champions go in, then I still think there's value for those conference championship games. But if you're going to do the current format, what they're proposing, get rid of them. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
because think about it. Because if you play that game and get hurt, your chances for a national championship and your brand are both hurt. So, I agree.
Your brand has been damaged because that auto dealership wants nothing to do with you if you can't walk through a parking lot on crutches.
Yep. And why would I buy a ticket to a game that I already know the two teams that are in there are going to go to the college football playoff?
That spins me into another question here, and that's, what does this do for players instead of playing a 12-game season, a conference championship, and won maybe 2 playoff games. Now you're talking about an extra game, maybe 2 extra games.
I don't see it as any different because we've seen players opt out because of the NFL draft. We've seen players sit there and say, I'm going to declare for the NFL draft. I appreciate the time that I've had at my university. I love my teammates. I love my school. Insert full screened Twitter and Instagram post here saying complimentary things. I just think that once again, it will now be expanded to the brands of these athletes, where if they don't see any value in it, in addition to their possible professional future, they're not going to want to damage what's going on with them. And because you never know where these relationships that are being culled now could lead. And so I think that it just adds that extra element of, I don't know about this. I'm going to look out for my brand. I'm going to look out for me. And if my brand means pro and extra revenue under NIL, then I think that you may have more athletes opting out of postseason than you have right now. But what this also does is it gives you another reason to add on if you think that you have a future as a professional.
And kind of talking about just the wear and tear on the athlete, if the games mean something, then, obviously the player is going to play. And I think just adding 1 game, maybe 2 games, it's not like it's a 165 game baseball season. Adding 1 game to a mix, we're already playing 12, 13, 14 games. In the grand scheme of things, is not going to be that big of a difference. But I do agree with Nelson in the fact that if I'm a Trevor Lawrence, or if I'm or to use current one, DJ Uiagalelei, and I know that this
DJU.
If I know that this game's not going to mean anything, then I'm going to opt out and let my stand-in get some reps. But then you have to worry about your brand there. I mean, are you letting your team down? Are you letting your teammates down by opting out? So that's again, your brand, putting brand before ball. But I think as far as wear and tear on an athlete, it's not going to be that big of a difference.
And everybody wants to play for a championship.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go there. I could see where somebody would opt out if they're going to be playing in a minor bowl game.
Yeah.
In the Outback Bowl, which is essentially going to be rendered meaningless in all of this.
Yeah.
I see the opt out there like that.
Oh yeah, no question.
Do you really think that a top level player playing in a top flight team competing for a potential national championship is going to opt out in the middle of a playoff race?
Nope.
No, I don't think. I think that once again, you're talking about marquee bowl game, marquee program, maximization of brand opportunity with performance in said games. I think that you go outside the playoff structure, you're going to have the second tier bowls, the early bowl games, those that are not the marquees. That's where I think you're going to have your full screen Insta posts, thanking your teammates and showing them love, and you have your signature on the full screen. That's where I think it's going to happen.
But see, that goes back to when I was at Wake, we played in the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl.
Yes, you did.
And none of us. We went to Shreveport, Louisiana, against Oregon. Nobody even thought about not playing in the game. Yeah, we knew that was the last game we were going to play. We weren't in for any national championship. We were 8-4. Bill Dooley's last game. We just played. Mm-hmm. And, I can't, me, the athlete, I can't imagine an opportunity for me to opt out that I would actually take. Because, I'm at a school putting on a uniform for a team, I'm playing. I guess I was never going to be this NFL star, first round draft picks. I don't understand. I understand their mentality, but in the end, I don't understand the mentality. If I'm in a bowl game, I don't care if it's, the Weed Eater Bowl or the Aloha Bowl or the Rose Bowl. I'm going to give everything I have. And that's the kind of the old school guy in me. It has a fight with my brain because my brain understands it now, but my heart doesn't understand.
What's happened though is you've seen guys who were pretty much guaranteed first or second round picks go play in their bowl game in Shreveport, Louisiana, and blow out a knee or an ankle, and all of a sudden draft stock goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. True.
And that decision cost them all of a sudden a lot of money.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I understand it, but then I don't understand it. I guess I never worried about blowing out myself because I knew if I was done, I was done.
mhm.
Well,
It's a huge can of worms.
yeah. And, you talked about incorporating the bowl games. Let them go. I mean, play it on campus sites.
Well,
That's
that's
going to
part
be
of
the
the
most
proposal.
exciting part of it. If you play it at Jerry World, a quarterfinal game, it's just not going to have the same feel as it would if you're playing a playoff game in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, now you've got some rabid fans. It'd probably
All
be
you
a
have
lot
to
like
do is look at
Lambeau.
what 1AA does, what they do in
Exactly.
FCS.
Yeah.
Exactly. We've seen some of those rabid crowds in the
Part of the
FCS playoffs, especially at
part,
North Dakota State.
Yep.
part of the proposal is the first round games would all be played on home fields on campus.
Yeah.
And then the NCAA, because I know why they did it, but it's a whole separate conversation,
Yeah.
has decided that the teams that get that first round bye are going to be penalized and have to play neutral site games when they get to play in the second round, which makes no sense.
No, it
Yep.
makes no sense. I mean, I think it's not going to have the same excitement level as it would if you're playing a playoff game on a campus site.
No, and,
And I don't mind the weather being a factor either. I mean, that's what makes the NFL
yeah,
playoffs
exactly.
intriguing. And so play them all and then, have your neutral site for the championship game and give it a Super Bowl rotation. Although I think the Rose Bowl should be the permanent site for
Agreed.
any kind of
Was-
a national championship game because of just the history of that place.
And it's a great stadium to cover.
And the weather's always nice.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. Play that title game at a neutral site, but play everything else on home campuses. Why would the third seeded team in the playoff? Why would they need to be penalized and not get to have a game on their own campus where they can make some money for themselves? They can do it for their home fans who don't have to travel one extra week.
Yep.
But it's a concession to the old bowl game system. What it is basically what it is.
Get
They're
rid of it.
trying to keep the Sugar Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, all those
Cotton
type
Bowl.
of sort of upper level, but not quite top elite level games.
Yeah,
in
they're with the
mix.
dinosaurs now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and those games exist.
And I love the tradition of them all, but I mean, it's just if you're going to do this playoff, you got to do it with campus sites. And the other thing that I want to bring up is when's the best time to schedule these playoffs? Because if the college football playoff goes head to head against the NFL playoffs, it ain't going to work out well for the college football.
Nope.
NFL is going to trump college football playoffs every time. So I think they need to do some due diligence as far as scheduling. I think FCS does it perfect. They play it in December, and then they take a little bit of a time off to hype their game and ungodly amount of time, and they play it in mid-January when nobody else is playing.
Yeah, they play it the week after the FBS championship, so they get their own time slot.
Exactly. So, and it's like 3 weeks off, which is crazy, but I guess for hype purposes for the FCS, it works. I'm kidding. But think about the scheduling too, because I just don't know if it's going to work if you're going head to head against the NFL playoffs, because they're playing Saturday games too, especially in the divisional round.
Another thing to think about too, as far as scheduling, as a student athlete, if you do much more in like November, December, I mean, that's the final exam time. Your windows are, traveling is restricted. So, I mean, you got to worry about, because even in our current system, there's issues with students missing exams and having to take up, incomplete.
Conference championship weeks usually end up at the finals week, don't they?
Right. So you got to worry about scheduling is a big thing involved coming from the education standpoint of this. Students have got to have time to take their exams. And again, don't put the brand before ball, but you also don't want to put ball before academics.
Before all that. I can say that.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Really, once you get past that week, however, colleges are essentially out half of the month of December, so it's less of an issue at that point.
It's usually the first week of December. Yeah.
Guys, what do you say we kind of wrap things up? We've talked quite a bit here. Both of these are some juicy topics. The name, image, and likeness. Blah, 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 blah. And
Take two, brother.
And the college football playoff proposals are both things we could probably devote an entire show to just talking about. Got anything you want to hit on really, really quick here before we wrap things up?
I want to hear this story from Kansas from J-Dub real quick.
You really want to hear it?
Yeah.
There was an issue with a player that was threatened by some players on the Kansas football team under the watchful eye of the Mad Hatter, Les Miles. And basically, there was a 911 call. He reported the threat. I mean, literally, he had a baseball bat. His name is Capleton Humphrey. Had a baseball bat in his dorm room. These 4 or 5 guys were really tormenting him. And he, as a 911 call, he reported it to this team, all this good stuff. The way Kansas handles it is that they basically pay him $50,000 to stay quiet and lead the team. And that's kind of the way. If you were going to put Les Miles' tenure in Lawrence in a bow, that would be it, because you basically paid this guy off, and the family's upset about it, saying, yeah, basically you didn't do anything to help my son, but you paid him $50,000 to stay quiet. Anybody surprised with Les Miles on that one?
No, and that's really one that you could just kind of drop the mic and walk away from after saying too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel bad for the kid, because the kid was basically mentally traumatized, and apparently his emotional trauma is only worth $50,000 to the University of Kansas.
Oh, when he dropped the check off, did Les Miles say, "Have a great day"?
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Probably.
And then tipped his hat.
Have a great day.
Have a great day and go eat some grass.
Yes. On that note, I think we'll put a wrap on the show this week, guys. Thanks for sticking around and listening to us talk about it all. Coming up next week, we're going to have to come up with a few things to talk about, but I think we'll be okay.
Yeah,
Make sure you tune in every week during the college football season for our show, The Review. We should have a couple other special college football podcasts in the offing for the college football season, so make sure you tune into that. Easy to find us. We got a phone app. Look up OSG Sports on the Apple Store or Google Play. We're right there. Easy to find. It's free. Download it today. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, and on Twitter at OSG Sports. You can find J-Dub at OSG J-Dub, John at OSG Nelson, and me at OSG Phil. Wilkie, we're still working on the Twitter thing with you.
Jay Wilkerson 16 until he changes it.
Well, no, that didn't get out
done.
of Twitter ban.
Oh, that's
gone.
right. No, that's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. He got banned for some reason.
He's been Twitterless Wilkie
trying to
for
figure
a
it
long
out.
time now.
Twitter. Let's just go OSG Wilkie and get
OSG
it.
Wilkie. Don't put your brand before your ball.
Exactly.
Do it today.
Shit, you gotta say that plural, J-Dub.
True.
Don't put your brand
Entire
before your
OSG
ball.
Sports team. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great week. We'll catch you again hopefully next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Review. You can find this and past shows by downloading the OSG Sports app on your mobile device. And enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.